Hi, welcome to day 17, where we continue our 12-step journey. Today we're going to do the middle part, which is step 6, 7, 8, and 9. And it's part of our ongoing journey of recovery. Now remember, it's still meant to be a bridge back to normal living, but this is where we move into more of the action steps. Yesterday, when we talked about doing steps 4 and 5, that was the first of the true action steps. Again, the first 3 steps were thinking. Steps 4, 5 started the action where you're writing out your life story, where you're sharing it with another person or in virtual with your higher power. And now we're talking about removing that nature of our problems, the defects of character, our shortcomings. So step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. 7 is humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8 is made a list of all people we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And 9, made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Now, if you think about it, these steps are rather interesting because it cleans up your act. It removes the wreckage of the past. It cleans up your actions there. And this is the only way you can truly break free. And then it's the way to live free. First, you have to break free to live free. It's one of the reasons we chose the name Live Free, because you can live free from the wreckage of the past. So as you go to the future, it's much more open, it's much more fun. But first, we have to do these steps. So step 6 it's a step of preparation, ready to remove these defects of character. This is kind of interesting. Are you really ready to get rid of those shortcuts, the defects, the nature of your wrongs, lying, cheating, stealing, cutting corners, whatever it is, are you really ready to do this? Are you ready to do this? You have to really think about it. First, you have to know what those natures are, those defects of character. That's where you learn in the 4th and the 5th step. Now you have to decide, and this should be quickly. Yep, I'm okay. I want to be free of this. And then step 7 is similar to step 3, but a little bit more specific. We humbly asked him to remove these shortcomings. So you, in whatever way works for you, a prayer, a ritual, you're ready to release them to the universe. Because first you have to be ready. Then this one, in step 3, it was a decision step. And then if you did the decision, when you do steps 4, 5, and especially when you do steps 6, 7, 8, and 9, because now you're taking that action. This also means it gets rid of those things that led to the addictive nature, the addictive behavior. Is it your pride that makes you believe you can still live with these sources of problems? Because if your ego and pride get in the way, I can do this. I can still lie, cheat, and steal and stay sober. Most people find they cannot. You have to kind of change your nature if you're going to become a new person. So again, step 6 and 7, again, a lot of people make it way more difficult than it really is. Just do it. Are you really ready? Think about it. Look at those natures. Are you ready to get rid of your lying, your cheating, your stealing, your cutting corner, whatever your natures are? Am I ready to do this? Yes? Then you figure out a ritual that works for you. It could be a prayer. In the 12-step world, if you read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they have a prayer you can do at this point. They have a 3rd-step prayer and a 7th-step prayer. You can do those where it's entirely ready to let go of this so God can use you in however way is needed. So you can do this and it works for you. But don't think you can live with those old natures and live a new life. Because the conflict that sets up is what we had when you first came in. So we want to get rid of it. And these 2 steps start the process. Then we go looking at really those natures. And again, review your story. Go back and look at your story. Look at your 4th step. That's all the nature of your wrongs. So when you look at your 5th step, there it is. Are you ready to get rid of them? And you do your ritual. Then, to prove that you've done it, you do step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. This is a great starting point. And you already have the list when you look at your story, especially if you did it where you look at all the people you have resentments against. There's there's the beginning of your list. So when you look at your story, there's the people I need to make amends to. And in the AA world, it's always known that few people can make headway until they clear up the wreckage of the past. And it's about taking responsibility. And once you do this, you can really begin to grow, right? And this is what we want to do. So you look at that list, make the list of all the people you had harmed and became willing to make amends. It doesn't say do it yet. When you're looking at this list, are you ready? Do you look at your part? Because generally when you're first looking at it, you'll say, yeah, well, I wouldn't have done this if they didn't do that. Your responsibility is not what they did, it's what you did. In the 12-step world, they use the term, keep your side of the street clean. You don't worry about their side. So are you ready to make amends? And if you are, then you can move on to the 9th step, which is make direct amends to such people whenever possible. And again, you got to stress whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So if you harm somebody, it wouldn't necessarily go back and be a good idea to go and make your amends if it's going to hurt their relationship. You know, if you heard a story once of someone who had an extramarital affair with someone that the family was close to, and it really ate him up, and when he was getting in recovery, he wanted to make amends. But if he went and made amends it was a man, to his friend for cheating on him with his wife, well, that might ruin their marriage. Again, it's like, he couldn't do that. That one he had to just let go of. So will it injure them or others? And you could be the other. So does it serve a purpose? And the best way to look at it is, what is my motivation to make this amends? Good story always is, there was a person talked about, after they were sober a while, they wanted to make, they thought their amends were, they had a bar tab that they didn't pay. They were a drinker. And it was $100, $150. And this was like 30, 40 years ago when it was a lot more money. And so after he'd been sober about a year, he saved up the money and he was going to go make amends, pay his bar bill because he thought it was the right thing to do. And even though he was counseled against it, he went in. So he went in and he sat down at the bar. And he saw all the people he used to drink with that he'd actually listened to the idea of changing his playmates and playpens. And so he hadn't been around there for almost a year and a half. And I remember him saying the first thing that happened, everybody's like, hey, we'll call him Joe. Joe, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a couple of weeks. And he's thinking, it's been 18 months. But he didn't say anything. Yeah, you're doing good, been busy. Oh, okay. Quit drinking. Oh, good for you. And then he sat there and he's got an orange juice and he's sitting there, and then he noticed all the things going on. It was like, he said, the conversations hasn't really changed in the 18 months he'd been gone. Same stories, same thing. And he's sitting there and he's thinking about it. And then he sees the bar owner who he was waiting for to pay his bar tab. And the bar owner was talking about they just got back from a good big vacation in the Caribbean. And right when he got back, he picked up his new car and all this. My friend was saying he looked at it and realized over his drinking career, he literally spent tens of thousands of dollars, and this is back in the 70s, in this bar. And he's like, what am I doing? And then it dawned on him, as he's sitting there, he's looking around, his true motivation was not to make amends, to pay this bill, because he could have wrote a check, dropped it in the mail, and left it alone. He walked back in there because he thought everybody was going to welcome him back, a ticker tape parade, tell him he's doing a good job, And then as he said to somebody who started talking to him, he said, I quit drinking about a year and a half ago. And the person said, well, what are you doing in here? You're going to drink. Why don't you just have a drink? That's what you want. He's like, no, I don't. So all these, he had to look at his motivation. So whatever your motivation to make amends, is it proper? Is it good? Is it to live a better life? Or is it to feed your ego? You want people to tell you you're doing a good job. The other thing you have to become aware of that could happen is you go make amends and say, I'm sorry I did this, this, and this. And you expect them to say, okay, fine, no problem, we understand. What if they go into a tirade of, you're horrible, you ruined this, I hate you, yada, yada, yada. That's their side of the street. You have no control over it. So always be prepared that if you're going to do this, when you do it, and you should do it, to be prepared, you don't know what the response is going to be. Most of the time it will be. A lot of times the stuff that you built such a huge thing over, the other people don't even remember. Because to you it's this huge thing. It's been living rent-free in your head. You've rented out this whole spot of your brain to this issue that to the other people means nothing. They may not even remember it. And then, of course, it could happen the other way. So you need to do this. And then it brings up one other point. What about when someone mentions something to you that you don't remember doing, whether from a blackout from drugs or alcohol, or you just don't remember it? That's what you need to make the decision. I would counsel, go ahead and make amends if possible. It's up to you. And again, it's your moral code. There's certain things maybe you did in the past that you have no guilt, remorse, or issue with that other people might. That's up to you. And again, one of the great things about recovery is you're developing a new you. So you're going to develop your own moral code. You're going to develop your own spirituality. You're going to develop the you want to be going forward. And it's all about living a better life. And again, it's about stimulus response. Because if you do this and you make the 8th and 9th step, it totally clears away those last vestiges of wreckage from the past. And so it opens you up. So if you run into those people, places, and things later on, because many of us have spent a long time avoiding this, and now once you do it, or you're ready to make amends, and they're there, you make amends, it no longer has that hypnotic power. It no longer grabs you the way that it did. It clears it away. I always call it the sunshine of the soul. They can't come back and haunt you with it. And again, this is the fun part of what we do. Here's another video that we're going to watch, and it's about releasing toxic emotions.
Forgiveness frequently means dealing with emotions that can be very toxic.
As we've heard, releasing those emotions can be extremely good for us in many ways.
But accomplishing that can also be extremely difficult for some.
So our friend Dr. Deepak Chopra has some practical suggestions about how we can release those toxic thoughts.
Toxic emotions create the same toxicity in your body as a toxic substance, like say cigarette smoke or drugs that are detrimental to your body, or too much alcohol. So a toxic emotion at the molecular level is as damaging as any other toxin. So in order to deal with these toxic emotions, first of all, you have to take responsibility for your own emotions. You don't blame other people for your emotions. You take responsibility for them. Because if you're waiting for someone else to get better before you feel better, you might have to wait for a long time. So take responsibility. Two is witness the emotions in your body. When you think of what's happening, the traumatic experience, feel your body with your eyes closed, and you'll feel a sensation that goes with the sensation. So witness it, then label it, define it, then express it through journaling to yourself. Say, what is it? Is it anger? Is it resentment? Is it depression? Is it guilt and sorrow? Is it fear? And don't use words that use victim language. So don't say, I was abandoned or I was let down, because then you're blaming someone else, and by using the language of victimization, you're waiting for them to change so you feel better. Express your authentic emotions. What were they? I was enraged, I was angry, etc. That's fine. Now, having defined it, start expressing it. And the first thing is you express it to yourself. What happened? How did you feel? Describe the whole situation and how you interpreted it. Then actually go through a different process. Express the same thing, pretending you were the other person in the relationship. And when you do that, you'll see that the emotional energy starts to dissipate a little bit. It starts to see things from two perspectives. And then do it a third time as if you were a reporter for the New York Times and you were just doing an objective story from a third person's. By now the emotional energy is totally dissipated, and then you take that piece of paper up and you burn it and you do a ritual, you play a song, do some yoga, some breathing, and say, I let it go. And once you've done that, then you share it with someone you really love who understands you, and then you go out and celebrate and have a glass of champagne.
Good. Now, when you think about this, when you do the steps 6, 7, 8, and 9, at the end of the 9th step, there's something very interesting. In the 12-step book, the Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the original 12-step manual, and it's called the promises. And this is what they promise will happen if you go down the journey of recovery. But to get there, you have to do these steps. And again, step 9 is the end of the action steps. In other words, you've done the first 3 steps. You've gotten ready, steps 1, 2, and 3. Steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, you're at the edge, and then you're going to do 10, 11, and 12, which takes you back into normal living. And these are called the promises. And they say it will happen if you do it. And it's been my experience for people that really do this earnestly, it does happen. And the promises are, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We'll comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We'll lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We'll intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They'll always materialize if we work for them. That's some bold promises to make, but they seem to happen over and over again for the people that do this earnestly. And again, one of the promises that people bring up is that fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. It doesn't mean you're going to be economically secure for the rest of your life. The fear of it begins to dissipate. Because again, those of us in recovery, we can look back at our lives and go, oh, we did pretty good with all that stuff going on in our lives, drinking, drugging, legal bills, whatever it might be. We'll have that fear removed. And I like that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And so this is our promises. So if you do these steps, it really begins to work. So I want you to do this, but don't drag it out. Just do this. And again, a lot of it's already done in your 4th and 5th step. Good. So now we're going to watch one more video. And this one is a lot of fun. And it's about creating magic.
What makes a person irresistibly charming, magnetic, charismatic, attractive? We all know certain leaders to be charismatic or charming or magnetic or even irresistible. We want to be in their company and want to engage in their vision and help them fulfill their dreams because somehow we feel that our dreams are aligned with their dreams. So here are the three ingredients of an irresistibly magnetic and charming personality. 3. The first is presence. What does presence mean? Presence means simply that you're totally present. Presence is spirit. You're present in the moment and attentive to what is. You're present in your body. and everything about you reflects that. You do not have the luxury of being distracted. Your eye movements, your facial expression, your gestures, your posture, your body language, the tone of your voice, it all reflects life-centered, present moment awareness. To be present in the moment to what is and to who is in front of you is to experience life as it unfolds in that moment, but also to experience relationships and social interactions and environment as they unfold in your awareness in the moment. So that's the first characteristic of a magnetic personality. The second characteristic is self-esteem that comes from true self-power, where you feel beneath no one, where you are fearless, where you are immune to criticism even though you may be responsive or are responsive to feedback. But true self-esteem also comes by being centered in yourself beyond the self-image. Real self-power and self-esteem. When you know who you are, when you know what you want, when you know what your unique skills are and how you can use them, when you know exactly what you contribute and receive in a relationship, and when you are very clear about your values, irrespective of what the world thinks. That's true self-esteem. So that's the second characteristic of magnetism, or a magnetic personality, or an attractive, charismatic leader. And what's the third characteristic? It's the emotions that you radiate. The emotions that we call divine emotions. Loving kindness, joy, compassion, and equanimity. These are called divine emotions. You exude the warmth of divine emotions that connect you to the ecosystem, the web of relationships, of which you are an expression. So that's the third characteristic. In summary, you can be charismatic, you can be irresistible, you can be magnetic, you can be charming in a very authentic way. If you're present, if you express and are grounded in true self-esteem, and if you radiate the divine emotions of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity.
Good. So now what I want you to do is journal how you're going to apply this to your life. How are you going to apply this to your recovery? How can you use this? Is there ways you can customize it to fit yourself? What is the nature of your wrongs? Who are the people you need to make amends to? Is there people you can do it now? Sometimes, I always end this talk with, sometimes the best amends you can make to anyone is to live clean and sober the rest of your life. To become a shining city on the hill. To become the kind of person that overcomes the addiction so people know you can do it. That's the absolute, hands down, best amend you can make across the board. The other amends are good, but this one is the most important. Because if you go back into that old lifestyle, all of the amends you make to this point are useless. So commit to living a better life, and as you move forward, it's much, much easier. Good. So now we're going to do our little relaxation as always, and then we'll see you on the next day. So take a nice deep breath and relax.